Hello everyone. In this lesson we're gonna learn how to send queries from our application to our mock server. Now our mock server up and running, and we can see through browser DevTools that it's working. So for example, if we fire the same command as before, we will see that in our mock database there is a list of to-dos which is empty for now. Now it's time for our application to start fetching data from our mock server. In this course, we will be using React Query to send fetch requests together with code generator to automate hooks and types generation. It's time to go back to our editor and install some required dependencies. Everything is installed, and now we need to scaffold a config for our codeGen. Touch codeGen.yml. Now we have our config. It's empty. We need to pre-populate it with some rules. Let's see what rules we have here. The first line says every time we run code generator, if there is something generated, feel free to override it. The second line says take schema from file name schema.graphql. Currently we use string schema, but we are going to get rid of that in order to have proper schema. This line, we are going to ignore it for a moment. It says where to take GraphQL files for queries, but right now we don't have any queries, so for now we keep it commented. And here we say what will be generated once we will run the command GraphQL codeGen generate. Here we say we need to generate schema.ts because we cannot import from schema GraphQL here. We need a copy of it. So we will generate schema.ts file, and then we will import this schema variable from it. Here we add export const schema. Basically, this is the variable we are going to import later. The next generated file will be index.ts in order to have pretty imports, exports in our project. And the last one, the most important file, the file will be named GraphQL types. Under this file, we will keep all the types, all the hooks, and all the generated code. It requires some config. Because we're using React Query from Tanstack, we can provide endpoint for that here. And we say additional parameters like skip type name, use type imports, use immutable types. So everything will be read-only, and we need to pre-resolve types because we have two separate files in generated folder. So we will need to import from one file to another file, not to duplicate generated types. And we want to get rid of from underscore because some variables from GraphQL might come with underscore, so we don't want that. So we want to convert everything to camel case. We need to go to package.json to scripts section, and we need to add additional script which says codeGen generate, which will run our codeGen generator with the config we just created, this one. And we need to do one more adjustment. We need to create schema.graphql file. So let's do that. File is created, it's empty. We need to copy our schema to this file. npm run codeGen generate. As you may see, it generates for us folder with the files we described here. So we have GraphQL types, which is types for our schema. As you see, query, to do, and so on. We have our schema.ts, which basically the same thing as this. So we can get rid of this hard-coded schema and always use our generated schema. As you see, imported from generated. Now we can generate query to actually query our mock server from the application and not from DevTools. In order to do that, let's create GraphQL file. Let's name it queries. And here we need to create a query which will brings us to-dos. Query, let's say get to-dos. we will take ID of to-do and content. Now we need to run our generator one more time, but before we need to enable this line because we have query to generate. We need to rerun our generator one more time to regenerate types and query. Basically, every time we change something in query files, we need to rerun generator. And now if we will go back to our application and we want to check if our query is working, const x for a moment, we'll say use get to this query, and we can put it into console log for a moment. Console.log, query response, and we say X. Let's rerun our application. Let's go back to our main.tsx. Here we need to import and connect our query client to our application. Const client, new query client, and we need to use our query client provider. Let's wrap application into it. And we need to specify client for this. Client. Now everything should be fine. Let's go back to the browser and check. As you see, application is trying to query our server, but it complains because the port is different. So for a moment, we need to go back to our codeGen config and to update the port. It should be 5173. We need to rerun our generator to regenerate everything with the new port. As you see, everything is okay. And now we can go back to our browser, refresh to be sure, and we can see the React query sending query, and then Mirage shows us information that there was a request. Inside of this request there was a query, and then there was a response saying data. Inside of data we have to-dos, which is empty array, which is exactly the same. If we will go back to mock server and check our db.dump, we will see that we have exactly the same array of to-dos, which is empty array because we didn't put anything into our database yet. In this lesson, we learned how to send queries from the application to our mock server, and also how to use code generator, not to repeat ourselves, and keep things a little bit more dynamic, because without code generator, we would need to create all those types by our hands, all the schema. If something would change, we would always need to go back and update schema, update types, and now we don't need to do that. We just changed the schema and the rest is covered by code generator. In the next video, we are going to learn how to populate our mock server database with actual data. See you in the next video.